Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. My name is Kammy Horne, and I am the CEO of Mpact. When the news came last November of Nashville's successful ballot measure, Choose How You Move, everyone at Mpact knew we wanted to find out more about how it came about. And we are so grateful today to have two speakers that were directly involved to share their story. Michael Briggs was instrumental in the development and passage of the Choose How You Move program. He served in a special advisor role to Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell as the Director of Transportation Planning. He is now Deputy Chief Program Officer in the Office of the Mayor. And Debbie Frank is the Deputy Chief Executive Officer for Growth and Development at WeGo Public Transit, and she's a longtime practitioner and leader in transit and transit-oriented development. She also is a former National Steering Committee member of Mpact. She is involved in the implementation of Choose How You Move. So this webinar will be a conversation between Debbie and Michael in 3 parts. So how Nashville pivoted from earlier losses and the cancellation of a bus rapid transit project, how the team built a very different campaign for Choose How You Move, and then how Nashville is approaching the implementation and community relations. And I will now turn it over to Debbie Frank and Michael Briggs. Thank you.
Thank you, Kammy. Thank you so much. Hello, Michael. I am just so excited to have this opportunity to have a conversation with you about Choose How You Move. You were very instrumental in the development and passage of the Choose How You Move referendum. You were on loan from Vanderbilt to the mayor's office to manage this important initiative for Nashville. So can you just please share with us a little bit about your role then and your role today in the mayor's office?
Yeah, certainly. Debbie, it's really good to see you. And I'm so glad to have you back in Nashville as well, because we have a long history of working together over the years in some past roles. So I've been really fortunate enough to build my career here in Nashville, and I grew up nearby and spent about 10 years at the city's planning department, really focusing on all things multimodal transportation. So helping develop the Nashville Next general plan, the transportation elements of it, and also supporting work and collaboration between MTA at the time, now branded as WeGo, and then Public Works, which is now the Nashville Department of Transportation. So I helped out with efforts to bring the bus rapid transit, the AMP, on West End in 2015, and also support the 2018 Let's Move Nashville plan. And so both of those were really teachable moments that shaped how we approached things last year. When Mayor O'Connell asked me to join the team last fall to get this on the ballot, the time frame was super short, from his first day in office in September of 23 until November of 2024. Honestly, it flowed really pretty smoothly, because I immediately knew some things would to make this work better and make this attempt more successful. And so we'll talk more about that. And I'm excited to be back as in his office as the Deputy Chief Program Officer and working on an implementation with Sabrina Sussman, our new chief. So Debbie, why don't you tell us more about yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. So as Kammy mentioned, my involvement in transit-oriented development kind of goes back 8.5 years in Atlanta. So prior to joining WeGo Public Transit 9 months ago, I served as Director of Transit-Oriented Development at MARTA in Atlanta. In that role, I led a staff and consultants working to advance mixed-use development at and around, I'm going to say at and around, heavy rail stations across Metro Atlanta. So I fast forward to today. I am so proud to lead an incredible team here at WeGo as we focus on capital project delivery. And Our work will include many of the public transit service components to Choose How You Move, such as new transit centers, all access corridors, a modern operations and maintenance facility, park and ride locations, as well as transit-oriented development. So I'm so looking forward to this work. And I want to add that we're also advancing initiatives I call kind of social infrastructure that improves our overall customer experience. And actually next week, we are launching the WeGo Market. It's a pop-up in partnership with the Nashville Farmers Market at our Elizabeth Duff Transit Center. And this is really about bringing fresh, healthy food options directly to our transit riders. Okay, so Michael, before we get into the meat of our conversation today, I want to get a sense of what do you hope is a key takeaway from today's webinar?
Yeah, so I think every city or region that's tackling this topic, we've got some things in common. And so I'll be sharing our experience from really the government staff side, and that set the stage for what the campaign then undertook. Here in Nashville, we built on our past efforts, and we've really had to emphasize how dedicated transit funding really makes all modes of transportation on a street work better. And so I have a hunch that there might be a thing or two that will work in other areas. What about you?
So for me, I'm hoping everyone's listening closely to you as you're talking about the importance of authentic community engagement and how important it is to be aligning the message from the community in those priorities. So I'm really excited about that messaging that you'll be providing. Okay, so we're gonna jump into our first session, learning from setbacks. So Michael, Nashville made a couple of attempts to move transit forward with some unfortunate setbacks. So we had a BRT project that was canceled in 2015. The federal funds from that project were then allocated to Indianapolis. And then the first transit referendum in 2018 did not pass. So I want to know, and I'm sure the attendees want to know, what did you learn from those setbacks?
Yeah, so we'll pull up a slide here that shows the derailed report. And so when I realized I was stepping into this role at the mayor's office, this was the first thing I did, was dig out this report from 2018. It reviewed what we did back then. I think we all read it in early 2020. It took them a little while to generate it. It really laid out the challenges we faced back then. And I started chatting with others in Nashville who worked on the past efforts, just making sure what was in the report, did it still seem valid and true? And I think we all agreed that the assessment on many levels was still spot on. That report honestly was a huge head start for us in 2024. Having an outside partner like that really dig into that past process shaped how we approach things. Two big takeaways that came from that report, there's sort of a list that's in the report, but two that I'll talk about center around transparency and timing. And so in the 2018 Let's Move Nashville plan, we leaned heavily on a few key advisors who built on the earlier plans. You know, you start out doing a plan and you kind of build it to develop the program to lead to implementation. So that, you know, that process was spot on. But we knew we needed to add a level of transparency that didn't seem to be there in 2018 for the Choose How You Move plan. And so we set up a technical and community advisory committees. And they met multiple times between when the mayor made his announcement that we would pursue dedicated funding and to when we held the referendum in the fall. I'll say it was uncharted territory for us because we were putting these meetings on the Metro Nashville network. So they were broadcast live, were being recorded and could be watched again on YouTube. And things weren't fully ironed out. You know, we took the past plans, but in order to shape the program that is relevant for our needs at the time, not everything was baked out. And I think it was really important that residents see that. Local media participated in it, reported on it. They could see the thoughtful discussions about community trade-offs. So an important thing was looking at the financial envelope that could be done through this process and the type of transit that you could deliver. And so we had really robust discussions around that. Another way we addressed the transparency issue was meeting with our Metro Council members. So we had listening sessions with 37 of the 40 council members that we have. And that was before the program was released. But we felt like we needed to understand again their concerns and be able to explain where we are in the process. So it gave us a face-to-face interaction to where it built trust around the direction we were headed. I think at the end of the day, that level of transparency really paid off. It sparked, I think, more genuine conversations around the city as the program was out there, as people were discussing the elements of the program. Then on the second issue related to timing, the mayor's transition committee recommended that we take advantage of the tight timeline. And so there is a graphic that we can pull up that shows what came out of the transition committee. And so that had us take advantage of the tight timeline to go towards the fall ballot. The presidential election is when more voters in Nashville are likely to go to the polls. And so in a county that leans more progressive on social and civic issues, it's likely to result in a better outcome for transit. I mean, that's highlighted in the derailed report. So that didn't give us much time to develop a program for the campaign to gear up, and that tight timeline kept us focused on that goal.
Right. So this is great, and this is a great lead into the next session. Just talking about how did we pivot? How did you guys pivot to choose how you move, and how did it all come about, Michael?
Yeah, so actually, if we can show then the arrow timeline right now, I think that's important to have up. You know, the mayor took office in September of 2023. And so this time frame was quick, but there was a lot out there already for us to build upon. And so improving transportation was a huge deal of his campaign. And if we can show back the kind of animated graphic with the mayor, you'll see the transition committee report there. And it's got this big question mark around a transit referendum. And that really sums up their report. All of this graphic kind of sums up some of the recommendations from that report. And they noted that this was a really tight timeline.
So Michael, I heard the mayor walked into a meeting with a stack of 50 plans, and he dropped the plans on the floor and said something along these lines. So you have to tell me if this is true. We've already planned for this. It's time to move forward. So I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, the ability to carry 50 plans into a meeting. Is there any truth to that story that I've heard?
Yeah, I will just correct one thing. We ended up identifying over 70 plans.
Oh my God. Okay.
So yeah, so it was a lot. And you know, and now is the timeline with the arrow. You know, I honestly wouldn't have joined the mayor's team if it meant just developing another plan. And so this is where we built upon these past efforts. We've really struggled with getting things done in Nashville. And so you can see in this graphic, we had 2 attempts at this. And so it's really 2 decades that led us up to having a successful dedicated revenue source. And so I wasn't interested in coming back to work on another plan. I knew this mayor's history. He's wanting to get things done. And so you can see from those steps We built upon the Nashville Next plan in 2015 and then In Motion right after that. And so we knew from past community conversations, especially around the canceled BRT project, and then also the 2018 Let's Move plan, that most Nashvillians don't grasp how transportation projects help improve our streets. And the way that it improves it, it really aligns it with all of our multimodal plans. And so this referendum for us was really a chance to bring our street infrastructure up to modern day standards. We have a number of streets that were widened in the 60s and 70s. They don't have any sidewalks. People walk in ditches, and we're trying to run frequent transit service on those corridors. And so they're unsafe. And so this is how we can make our streets work better. And those past attempts, and this is a good example on Dickerson Pike, those past attempts, residents really focused on things that were being taken away. So it may have been like a travel lane, or it was an expensive part of the program in 2018, like the tunnel. And the fact is that we know our residents who are walking along corridors like this want safer streets. They want more sidewalks. They want transit service that runs frequently. And so we shaped the program, and eventually the campaign messaging picked up on this. And you'll hear us repeat sidewalks, signals, service, and safety as a big component of the program. We were also intentional about the words that we use, like transportation and all access corridor. Residents don't understand bus rapid transit. And I would even argue that within our own kind of planning and transit industries, there's even debate sometimes as to what that means. And,
Right.
Much less the average Nashvillian understanding this. And so we called them all access corridors, and we were able to then talk about what that means. And so that's where we're going to build and complete sidewalks, so you're not walking in ditches. We're upgrading signals to work smarter for both traffic and buses. We have transit service every 15 minutes or better. And then we're improving really our most dangerous streets, our pikes in Nashville, where people are getting injured and killed, and making them safer. Another element that I'll quickly hit on that we did is that we didn't intentionally produce visuals of the corridors.
Okay.
I think there's a desire a lot of times to get that out there. And our main goal was really to get voters to say yes, to know what's in the elements of the program and get us to dedicated funding, and not really get bogged down into how the projects are designed. We have those conversations later in this process. And I would say the visuals could have been a self-inflicted moment where you're doing something from a good perspective to put out a vision, but it can also raise a lot more issues that people can pick apart. And so we know we still have to have more conversations with our partners. The Tennessee Department of Transportation is a significant partner and collaborator on these corridors. And so we felt like getting out there with the design that seems to be baked, it just doesn't leave room for those discussions to happen later in the process.
Makes sense. So what other arguments were key in making the case for this referendum?
Yeah, so financial always comes up. And I think a lot of folks kind of focus on the financial envelope or the whole totality of the program. But I think at the end of the day, most people want to know how it impacts them. And so we talked about some of the financial envelope scale relative to other peer cities. I think we tend to want to be competitive in Nashville, and we don't want to be at the bottom of the list. But we really had to drive home this idea that our partners at Think Tennessee had identified, that we're one of only 4 cities in the top 50 US cities that has no dedicated transportation funding. And I think that was eye-opening to a lot of our residents. And really, at the end of the day, it shapes a story about how we can bring back federal dollars to Nashville and Middle Tennessee. And we had the perfect example where when we canceled the BRT project in 2015, we sent federal grant money back. And what happened was that Indianapolis went and got that money and built their BRT line. And so we could talk about that because people remember some of those discussions back then, and that they understood that there were ramifications, consequences around some of those decisions from back then. Also, on the financial front, we talked about how the half-penny sales tax surcharge would align us with other counties in the region. And I think in most regions, people are crossing county borders and not giving much thought as to the taxes that they're paying day to day. And in our case here, that half penny is in line with what people pay in nearby Murfreesboro or Cool Springs. And so people are not thinking about it twice to do that. And it helped kind of allay fears around what a half penny means to your own pocketbook or wallet.
Yeah, well, Michael, I have to say that the messaging around the federal taxes really struck a chord for me and many others in Nashville. It had never been framed in a way that made us all pause and realize that there's something fundamentally wrong when our tax dollars are helping fund transportation improvements in other cities, while Nashville is really missing out simply because we didn't have the ability to acquire those local match dollars to unlock those resources at the federal level. Now, I will also say that another important aspect of Choose How You Move was that it truly offered something for everyone. So it wasn't just this public transportation plan, and it is a comprehensive transportation improvement plan that speaks to the broader vision for mobility across our city. So I thought that was very important, a very important message that was resonating throughout everything that was being said during those critical times.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you see us. We call them the 4 S's, where we talk about sidewalks, signals, service, and safety. So the transit components are definitely a significant portion of the program, but a lot of the indirect improvements that you have through transit funding like this is what a lot of residents are really interested in. So, you know, one example with us around the traffic signals, there's just a lot of frustration of stop and go traffic throughout the city. And we have a really antiquated signal system. We just launched a traffic management center last fall for the first time in Nashville. And so we only have a limited number of signals that are interconnected, connected into the traffic management center. And so we all have this story of being downtown, going to an event, and you're sitting in traffic and you see the police officer next to the traffic signal cabinet, manually adjusting the signals. And so we use stories like that. We had a slide that had, it played a sound that sometimes was jarring, but if you remember the modem noise that you would get when you logged into AOL,
yes.
It told a story though about how our signal system has just gotten off of some of the dial-up connections and using cell service, and I don't think many Nashvillians really realize that. And you know, as a modern city, we can do a better job of upgrading all of that network to smart signals, tying it into the traffic management center. You know, and at the end of the day, that works better for cars and it works better for buses and keeping them on time.
Yes, I absolutely agree, Michael. And so I am reminded of images that I've seen of a stretch of Dickerson Pike, where nothing has changed in how people move through that corridor in over 10 years. The only thing that really changed was the actual gas station. The ownership of that gas station changed, but the mere fact that people, to your point, your earlier point, are having to navigate through ditches. It's definitely unsafe. And the other thing that strikes me is that it says that this is a bike route, right? And so it's interesting because I'm trying to see where is that taking place. So I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that image.
Yeah, I think the images that show this difference between 2015 and 2024, there's not a big difference there. And we're smiling about this because it's knowing how much Nashville has grown, the cranes that have been around town, the development people see on these corridors, because this photo doesn't really capture what you see further down the corridor. But people are frustrated over this. This is, we've changed the speed limit here, has been about it. And we haven't invested in these corridors. And so I think that was, another story to convey during this process, because people can relate to this if they're taking the bus. They're getting off and walking in ditches with stormwater in them. There's parts of Dickerson Road that don't work well for cars. Stormwater takes out a travel lane at times. And so we could talk about those specific issues and say we can do better than this if we have funding to do this. And so with Dickerson specifically being an all access corridor, you can begin to envision what you'll see in the future. You'll have sidewalks that are completed. We'll improve how the traffic signals work, and then we'll have dedicated transit running frequently along the corridor. And so it really had became a message about bringing these streets into the 21st century.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think we're ready to go to our third section, implementation.
Yeah, so I think we're going
to
yes, we're going to shift a little bit and turn
Yes.
the tables and start asking some questions about how we go from this program that passed by voters to implementation, because it's a huge capital projects program that Nashville has never seen before. And so, Debbie, talk a little bit about the elements of Choose How You Move when we think about implementation.
Sure. So when it comes to implementation, there's going to be two lead agencies. That's NDOT. So going back to the four S's, they're going to be responsible for sidewalks, signals, and street safety. And then it's the organization I'm with, WeGo Public Transit. And our responsibility, hence, is transit services, but also transit-related safety, another big important piece for us. So, but the overall oversight and coordination of the overall delivery strategy for Choose How You Move program itself is going to be occurring and managed by the mayor's office, your office, Michael. So it's a three-legged stool, so to speak. But I will have to say, in my years of doing what I've been doing, and you as well, we all know that none of this work can happen in isolation. So the successful implementation is going to depend on strong collaboration across a wide range of partners. And I'm just going to list a few, including some metro departments that are going to be key for us. That's planning, that's ITS, water services, police, social services, as well as key stakeholders like TDOT, NDOT, the Nashville Airport, and many others. And I can't leave out FTA when it comes down to funding. So the implementation piece is going to be one that is going to require a lot of hands on deck, so to speak. I want to pull up the actual slide that shows the Davidson County map, and that's showing all of these improvements and transit enhancements that we'll be doing. And I just want to highlight just a few. It's a lengthy list, but I'm just going to give you a sense of what we're tasked with doing. So we're going to be bringing 86 miles of installation of upgrade to sidewalks. We're going to replace and upgrade 600 traffic signals, and that's that new technology, smart signals that Michael was talking about earlier. We're going to have some reconstruction and renewal of 54 linear miles of streets. That's for our all access corridors. From a transit, public transit standpoint, we're moving to 24/7, 365 service. It's not going to be overnight, but we're taking steps to get there. We'll be basically, in the end, increasing our service hours to 80%. It's going to be an 80%, I guess I should say, 80% increase in the service hours. We'll be introducing transit centers, park and ride facilities, new routes, new express routes, new crosstown connections. So it's a lot of projects, and as you can see on the map, it is definitely dispersed throughout Davidson County. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the geographic scope of this, that's definitely something that was factored in as we were pulling the program together too, and looking at the financial envelope, because if you chose one transit mode like light rail, you would really result in one line. And so looking at bus rapid transit, the sidewalk improvements, the operational improvements with WeGo really helped us get this across much of the county. And frankly, it's really needed on so many of our corridors. So we're kind of meeting where we are in the moment. And so Mayor O'Connell announced 11 initial projects just recently. And so let's talk about a couple of them. When you talk about 24/7 service, what does that involve in order to get us there eventually? Because we've never had service like that in Nashville.
Right. So the WeGo service expansion of those 11 projects, it's going to include several key improvements to better meet the needs of our riders. We've added weekend and holiday service to our WeGo Access on Demand. And so that's our paratransit program. And then we've also launched 2 new WeGo Link zones. So this is where we're providing Uber rides to and from bus stops within a designated area of Davidson County. And then next month, we're going to be increasing the frequency on our highest ridership corridor. So again, it's taking a bite out of the apple, but it's definitely moving us toward that 24/7, 365 service. So in addition to the service enhancements, we're kicking off some critical capital projects. That's including planning for a new operations and maintenance facility and the Sobro Transit Center in downtown. We've also ordered 12 new buses. Our operations team is really excited about that. And then in March of this year, we really began the first steps toward a system-wide security upgrade. So those are some things under this first list of 11 foundational projects that we're really excited about bringing to the community.
Yeah, and I really love this because it's really putting things out there really right after voters approve this and shortly after us beginning to be able to collect the sales tax surcharge. And so it's beginning to show that we're acting on what voters have requested that we do. One thing that I like about one of the 11 initial projects, there's one that really stands out to me, and it's probably one of my favorite ones I've talked about as we were educating in meetings about Choose How You Move, but it's the low-income fare program that was proposed with this. So will you tell us more about what that means and how that will impact Nashvillians that need this program?
Yes. So we're currently, as you know, Michael, in the planning and design phase of the low-income fare ticket program, LIFT, which is on track to be fully implemented by the end of the year. So LIFT is designed to provide free transit service to Davidson County residents with the greatest need. And this is going to be covering MTA buses, WeGo Access on Demand, WeGo Link, RTA buses, and our WeGo Star commuter rail. And to your point, I absolutely love the low-income fare ticket program because the program directly responds to the community feedback when the community was calling for greater access, equity, and affordability in our transit system. And I'm so pleased that by the end of the year, we'll be able to have this program up and running.
Yeah, it's really great. And I've really enjoyed being in the discussions and see the program take shape and working with our social service partners as well. I think it's really something that we'll be really proud of here in Nashville. So there's a few other things like upgrading and installing fiber that we're beginning. So there's some stuff that's happening on the NDOT end. There's a maintenance facility that's identified that's needed for WeGo to kind of ramp
To
up
expand. Yeah.
operations. Yeah, just to expand to get to that
Yeah.
24/7 service. But there's also this one element around the transit centers. Because our service has traditionally connected into downtown, into a transit center there. And we've had a recent one that has just opened in North Nashville. And so we tell us more about that one and then what this looks like with Choose How You Move.
Yes. So with Choose How You Move, I'll start there. The Transportation Improvement Plan TIP identified 12 transit centers as essential to improving crosstown connectivity within the WeGo transit system. So to your point, the first one of the first is the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. Transit Center. It's the second transit center we opened, and we held our grand opening around the time I joined the WeGo team. So I was really excited about it, but I felt like I didn't do much other than just show up for the celebration. But it was the turnout was amazing for this. This transit facility is located in North Nashville, very important community and a very high ridership community for us. And the facility itself has been a tremendous addition to the North Nashville community, serving a key connection for 7 bus routes. And there were new bus routes that were introduced as a result of this. To your point, Michael, people no longer traveling from North Nashville have to travel into downtown. They're able to just do their crosstown connections. And the ridership from this station increased by 30%. So we knew that this was the area. If we wanted to identify our first location for a transit center of this magnitude, North Nashville was that community. So a little bit about the transit center itself. It's approximately 4,000 square feet, and it features 9 bus bays. We have a air-conditioned waiting area, restrooms, ticket vending machine, Wi-Fi, staff break room and office. There's a public plaza, and then we had a local artist that was part of the community engagement actually commissioned an art installation here. So it is a beautiful, beautiful transit center and really has set the stage on how we go about doing these in the future. So I am currently involved in trying to advance 3 additional transit centers in Davidson County. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's really exciting because there's many more of these to come, and each one
Yes.
will probably have different components depending on where it is in the city. And so it's really going to help with travel time for riders across the county. And so
Absolutely.
Really exciting.
So Michael, I think this is our time. Our time is up to have our one-on-one chat. And I so want to thank you, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I'm just going to turn it back over to Kammy for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie.
Well, thank you all so very much. Really, really appreciate the conversation, Debbie and Michael. We have many questions, so I'm going to get through as many as I can in the time that we have. And just a reminder, although we have a lot of questions, so I don't know, but if you do have other questions, you can put them in the Q&A and we'll see where we go. So the first question is just a clarification. And Michael, this is to you. Wondering, did you say that you actually did 30+ presentations to leaders?
Oh, yes. So we have a 40-member Metro Council. And if you want to see the latest kind of ongoings of that, just Google what's happening, because there's an effort with the state to reduce that number. But we were the first consolidated city-county government. A lot of that was rooted in combining county representation with city folks back in, I think it was the mid 60s. And so we did, we met with 38 of them to talk through that. And I will say, someone who's been at Metro for many years, I've never gone through kind of a spree of meeting with them. And it was kind of like working with like the UN or you know, big body of because you had meetings back to back, but it really helped us.
So much dedication. Thank you for that clarification. So the next question is, although Let's Move was defeated at referendum, are there any specifics from that plan that are still on the table? Like maybe an LRT line along one corridor, if not a full build out, or is it, you know, completely dead?
Yeah, and Debbie may want to add to this, but I think we both have talked about how Murfreesboro Pike, which is our connection from downtown to the airport, is probably the one that makes sense for light rail at some point in the future. And so I think noting that it's not off the table, you know, the program generates the money and it is around a budget towards a full bus rapid transit, but things may change to where there's more funding there to invest in transit or in light rail. So Debbie, you may want to add more.
Yeah, and well, to your point, Michael, Murfreesboro Pike will really provides the right of way that could support, you know, that level of a system. But to your point and your point earlier about, you know, spreading the love, that's what we needed to do, was spread the love throughout Davidson County. And to bring forth light rail would really take the entire, you know, budget that we've identified to bring forth all of these improvements in Davidson County. So we won't say that it's off the table, but we have, we definitely have other things that you remember, it wasn't all about public transit. There were the 4 S's: safety, signals, security. So, but to Michael's point, it's not necessarily off the table, but we're going to definitely try to spread the love throughout Davidson County, with Murfreesboro probably being the only corridor that could physically at this moment support a light rail project.
Thank you. Absolutely makes sense. And I appreciate that. So the next question really talks about, I think, speaks to that importance of champions for any type of initiative such as this. And the question is, do you think a referendum like this could have moved forward and been successful without leadership from the mayor?
Actually, no. I think in our case here, you want to talk about like aligning of stars with this. Like, it was almost kind of magical to see this transpire and be a part of it. Having worked on this before, Mayor O'Connell he has the passion for this. His background in being the MTA board chair, the president of Walk Bike Nashville, which is our walking and biking advocacy organization here. His experience being a Metro Council member and having one of the toughest districts, which involves downtown and all the growth there. He checks all of the things in this case to have someone out there front and center on this. And I don't know that we could have picked a better person, a better champion. And he knew going into this that this timeline was going to be tight and that we needed to get it done. Because if we did not act now, we were going to be waiting another 2 to 4 years revisiting this.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, Michael, that the mayor, his experience of using transit, you know, it really kind of complemented the message, because he was there. He's tried to literally, I think the story centers around him saving to buy a house so he didn't buy a car. And that's the situation for many across Nashville, when you got to make a decision on, you know, what am I going to spend my dollars on? And I think he was able to authentically speak to that, and it really resonated with the community, the lived experience, so to speak.
Yes,
Thank
his transportation story, we've often started in Nashville now, telling our transportation stories. His is in the mix with everyone else's, because it's a lived experience.
Thank you so much. So the next question is really about, many cities have struggled in the past being able to get large capital investment grant funding because of the lack of the local match that's needed. And so this question asks, could Nashville, or says, Nashville could leverage choose how you move to go further if the city can use local funding as a match to win more federal funding, a selling point for passing the measure. How is Nashville positioning itself to fight for and win federal transportation funding in a time with increased uncertainty and transportation reauthorization coming up?
That's a very good question because I think everybody
I
has
saved
that
the
on their mind.
easiest one, so.
I know. Oh my God.
Yes, so I will say this program is conservatively budgeted. So where I would say the 2018 program was pretty optimistic. We had COVID, which really disrupted a lot of things. Inflation took off. And so our approach with this around the financial envelope with the team was that this is a conservative approach. Now, it still relies on the federal government kind of holding their end of the bargain on some of these things. I think at the end of the day, this is a moment in time where things are being disrupted again. There is confidence in that we have local money coming into this that we did not have at all before. So having that there gives a great level of certainty to the industry, to the workforce that's needed to be here to do this. And so we are going to be at the table ready to go after all of that money. Whether it is looking at streets and trying to leverage improvements there and things that are maybe re-envisioned around some of the grant programs, or at that moment when leadership changes again and there's renewed interest in transit and a lot of the safety issues as well. We're going to be better positioned no matter what, having made this decision there.
Yes. And I'll add, Michael, that we have studied what it takes to be very competitive for a CIG grant. And we, to your point, are going to do what we can. We're having conversations with planning around, just policy and zoning, different things like that along these important corridors. So this is, a time to make sure we're planning, and we're gonna put forth a very strong application because we've been waiting. We've been waiting and we've been studying how it gets done. And we have great consultants around the country, really, the world, you probably would say, that are very interested in helping us pull together a winning packet. So that's really encouraging.
Thank you. And it looks like we have time for just a few more questions. Did enjoy hearing more about the Fair Support Program for the low-income residents. And this question is about Fare Free. So is there any interest from the city to have a Fare Free transit system across the board? If so, have you all thought about how this would be funded with the FTA funding for zero fare programs possibly going away?
So we have not had a conversation around fare free throughout the system. Right now, we're talking about free fare for the group of people that would need it the most. That's where we're starting.
Okay. All right. Next question. You have shown slides that did not show sidewalks. Is there a focus on accessibility of bus stops? And if so, how are you prioritizing that investment?
Oh yeah.
Well, okay, Michael.
Well, Debbie, you may want to speak kind of how currently that's being managed as WeGo puts in stops where, you know, there may be
Yeah.
sidewalk
So
issues.
last year we celebrated our 300th stop, bus stop shelter as part of our bus stop shelter program. And we've been working just really closely with our city partners like NDOT, and in certain cases where water services may come into play. And we're just trying to bring those in as many places as we can. We've kind of charged our team to double the number that they provided the city last year. So we're staffing up to make that happen. But in all, you know, what's interesting, and you're referring to that stretch of Dickerson. NDOT is moving just as quickly as we are on stops in installing sidewalks. So it's happening. Davidson County is a sizable community, but if you travel through many neighborhoods in the city, you'll see where those funds are actually being put into practice, bringing forth sidewalks and new shelters.
Thank you. And, oh, please, Michael.
Well, I'll just add quickly, you know, we made a strategic decision as a city back in the 60s not to require sidewalks on a lot of streets. So as like new neighborhoods were built, it wasn't a requirement. I mean, everyone thought they would be driving a car and would pull into their garage back then. And so we're really having to make up for that strategic error that we've made as a city. And so that's a huge component of this whole program, is just delivering some basic infrastructure at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I just think it's interesting, and it's an interesting question often that, you know, communities don't really understand too the amount of collaboration that is needed to like make it all work, including with the sidewalks for accessibility. So appreciate your addressing that. Another question here is, has there been any thought of using mixed use development with the design of the new transit centers?
Yes, and I will say that it may not necessarily be occurring by WeGo Public Transit, but our neighboring property owners, the private sector, is very interested in trying to advance transit-oriented development near these future transit stations. And kind of a running joke here in the office is that if you look at the transportation improvement plan, it's just an oval kind of purple. And they're really trying to determine exactly where in that circle, so to speak, where is that transit center gonna actually be placed, as they're thinking through the possibility of trying to bring mixed development around that. One of the things that we're working on, and this is one of our would ultimately end up being a regional park and ride facility with a transit center, is at the Global Mall. It's a mall that the city acquired, and it's in the Antioch community, and we're bringing a transit center there. And that transit center was planned as part of a larger master redevelopment of the mall. So it's really exciting for where I'm sitting to see the development community embracing and understanding how transit and development really should go hand in hand. For me, it's how it eliminates the need for someone to actually have to own a car to get about. And so we're definitely encouraging it. It's not necessarily something that the public transit agency will be pushing out ourselves, but we definitely are open to partnering with the development community in advancing that. The actual first transit-oriented development will be occurring in Davidson County. I guess I need to preference that. In Davidson County along the WeGo Star commuter line in partnership with H.E. Hill and Southeast Venture. H.E. Hill actually owns property that abuts our property there at the commuter rail station. So we're working through that, and we would be introducing a new transit center and increased bus options as well.
Well, and I thank you for that. And I'm kind of on the side, I'm seeing this message in the chat. Love to hear transit-oriented development efforts are underway. So Cheers to all of that great work. Michael, did you have anything to add there?
Now, what's interesting is on the kind of affordable housing piece and some of the mixed use development piece around some of the transit centers that are in the program, that's been an issue that's come up as it has gone through litigation. And when you look in kind of the details of the program, we're not using any of the revenue for affordable housing, but what this does is allow there to be money there to do the transit center components, and then the partnership is developed over time with the private or nonprofit to deliver the housing components or some of the community service components that are part of it.
Well, I want to thank you both very much. Huge round of virtual applause to you, Debbie and Michael. I think we're going to go now to just, oh, I love seeing all the reactions there. Really, really appreciate your passion and all that you have shared today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And here's our thank you slide. So we appreciate learning everything from you, and all the best also to those who are out there working on similar initiatives to support the important work of public transportation and livable communities. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide on what's up next from Mpact. So just a reminder that on June 20th, our registration for our Mpact Transit Plus Community Conference, which is going to be held in Portland, October 26th to the 29th of this year, our 30th anniversary celebration. That registration opens on June 20th. And then on July 11th, we will be having a second in a series for our Mpact Innovators Coffee Chat, which is all about a similar topic, funding for transit. So if you go to our website, you can sign up to get more information on the Mpact Innovators. And then we are also going to be having a follow-up survey just to hear your impressions of this webinar. And just very quickly, I also want to thank the Mpact staff, specifically our behind the scenes, Hillary Reeves, who leads Mpact Voices. And so we appreciate all the work from you. Thank you so much to everyone for joining today.